Fire before we dive into this heart-pounding thriller, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss stories that grip your chest, twist your breath, and drag you into the kind of danger you hope never finds you in real life. And with that said, let me tell you about the night kidnappers grabbed the daughter of a black man, completely unaware that the man they were crossing wasn't just any ordinary father but a highly trained, battle-hardened, no-nonsense Navy SEAL whose quiet life had been carefully constructed to hide the storms he once weathered in foreign lands where silence and shadow were his only companions, and his ability to eliminate enemies before they even knew they were being hunted was unmatched. But that peace he worked so hard to build shattered in one ruthless second when men with black masks and cold eyes slid into the suburban calm of his neighborhood, targeting his little girl for reasons that made no sense at first, bundling her into the back of a van with a bag over her head, believing they were seizing an easy ransom opportunity, believing her father was just another civilian with a steady 9-to-5 job and no power to fight back. But oh, how wrong they were, because Darius Cole was not just any father. He was a warrior forged by years of relentless training, missions that never made it to the news, and scars that reminded him of the thin line between life and death. And when he heard his daughter scream, the dormant predator inside him snapped awake, the hunter's instincts roaring to life with a promise that he would get her back no matter what blood had to be spilled. So while the kidnappers drove smugly into the darkness thinking they had control, Darius was already moving, his mind clicking through tactical calculations the way some men mentally solve crossword puzzles, analyzing tire tread sounds, engine rev, distance, time of abduction, and possible routes out of the neighborhood. And while his neighbors peered through curtains afraid to act, Darius was in his garage tearing open a locked trunk that hadn't been touched in years, one filled with weapons, gear, and memories of operations so classified they didn't officially exist. And as his calloused hands gripped the steel of his old rifle, he felt the weight of his past embrace him like an old friend, whispering that this was what he was born to do, not paperwork, not blending into suburban life, but war, and he would bring war to anyone who dared touch his child. Meanwhile the kidnappers, 3 men led by a greasy-haired thug named Victor Kane, a small-time criminal with big-time delusions, laughed in the van as his daughter, Amara, whimpered in the corner, her small wrists tied but her eyes blazing with the same fire as her father's, though they didn't notice it, too busy arguing about the ransom demand, how much money they could squeeze out, not knowing that every second they wasted was a second closer to their doom. And Darius, sliding behind the wheel of his black SUV, had already hacked into the city's traffic cams through old military contacts, locating the fleeing van's path with precision, every turn narrowing their options, his breathing steady like it had been in deserts and jungles where he stalked enemies who never saw sunrise again. And just as he closed in, a twist revealed itself. The kidnappers weren't working alone, they were pawns for a shadowy figure named Mikhail Orlov, a Russian arms dealer Darius had crossed years ago during a covert mission that ended with a warehouse of weapons destroyed and millions lost. And though Darius had thought that chapter of his life was closed, Orlov had waited patiently, watching from the shadows, and now had chosen to strike at Darius's heart by taking Amara, using Victor and his crew as disposable tools. But if Orlov thought this would break him, he was mistaken, because nothing sharpened a SEAL's instincts like the threat of losing family. So when the van swerved off the highway into an abandoned industrial park, the kidnappers thinking they had reached a safe meeting point, Darius was already there, stalking them from the shadows with the patience of a lion circling prey. And when Victor dragged Amara from the van, barking orders and shoving her toward the building, a soft whistle cut the night, and one of his men fell with a suppressed shot through the skull, the other spinning in panic, guns raised, realizing far too late they had awakened a ghost who moved faster than their fear. And the firefight that followed wasn't a battle, it was an execution, with Darius dismantling the crew piece by piece, his movements fluid, merciless. But just when he thought he had secured Amara, a black SUV roared from the shadows, men in tactical gear seizing her again, dragging her into the vehicle as Victor bled out, cackling that they were only the bait, that the real trap had just begun. And before Darius could reach them, the SUV was gone, tires screeching, leaving behind the scent of gasoline and the echo of his daughter's muffled cries. And though fury flared inside him, he forced it down, because rage clouded judgment, and judgment was his sharpest weapon. So he tracked them, every lead, every connection, until the trail led to the harbor, where Orlov's private yacht waited, guarded by mercenaries with enough firepower to wage a small war. But numbers meant nothing to a seal who had faced worse with less, and under cover of night, he slipped into the water, emerging silently on the deck, eliminating guards with hands, knife, and silence, his body moving like death itself, until the corridors echoed with the last gurgled breaths of men who thought their paychecks made them invincible. And deep below, in the yacht's steel belly, Amara sat chained, whispering to herself words her father had taught her, words of strength, promising herself she would not break. And when the door burst open and Darius entered, bloodied but unbowed, her eyes filled with hope, but it was short-lived, for Orlov himself appeared, flanked by men, grinning with the arrogance of someone who believed he finally had the upper hand, taunting Darius with memories of past battles, offering him a twisted choice: join him, serve as his enforcer, or watch his daughter die. And though Orlov's words slithered like poison, he didn't understand that Darius's strength wasn't in fear, it was in love, in the unbreakable bond with his child. And with a sudden movement, faster than Orlov anticipated, Darius ignited chaos, turning their weapons against them, using shadows, smoke, and fury until the cabin became a slaughterhouse, every mercenary falling, Orlov fighting desperately but finally cornered, gasping as Darius whispered in his ear that no man touches a seal's family and lives, before ending him with the same cold precision he had ended so many threats before. And when silence finally fell, the yacht rocked gently under the moonlight, stained with the cost of vengeance, but in the middle of it stood Darius, holding Amara, her small arms wrapped tight around his neck, her tears mixing with relief. And as dawn broke over the water, he knew the world would never stop testing him. Enemies might return, shadows might linger, but as long as he breathed, no force on earth would ever steal his daughter from him again, because some battles aren't fought for medals, or glory, or flags. They're fought for family, and in that war, he was undefeated. And if you were gripped by this journey of blood, love, and unrelenting will, make sure to subscribe, because more stories like this, stories of courage, vengeance, and the unstoppable power of a father's love, are waiting just beyond the next shadow.